Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers Inspiration. I'm your host, Harriet Cole. As always, delighted to spend this time with you. And I've been thinking about something that many of us have not been doing enough of during this elongated period of quarantine. And I think for some, going back to quarantine because we're seeing that the numbers are swelling very sadly in COVID. So people rightfully are pausing, coming back inside, being cautious. And then many of us are working, sitting at a computer, much like I am right now, staring into a screen, communicating with the people with whom we work, with loved ones. Everything seems to be moving in this way, right? And so what happens? We are sitting. You're sitting right now, probably. Maybe a few of you are walking and watching, but I bet most of us are sitting just as I am. And that lack of movement is not the best thing for us. So, welcome everybody. What we're talking about today, what I hope will inspire each other to do is to move, physically get up and move. That we need to not be as still in a physical sense as I think many of us have become. It's just part of what is real about this moment in time for us, but we need to pay attention. I've talked to a lot of people, I want to say hundreds of people in the past few months, checking in for all the coaching work that I'm doing, checking in with people who are part of my personal life, just checking in with folk. And one of the consistent things that I've heard from people is that they are sitting, staring into a computer screen. And what does that do? Then your shoulders get heavy, then your legs get heavy, your body could get heavy too. That joke about the COVID-15 or the COVID-19, meaning pounds. How many folks have, without realizing it, added that weight onto their bodies because of lack of movement? Unfortunately, many. Because movement is important. It's important to get the blood moving in your body, to get your brain activated and reactivated. It's important. And yesterday, I had a wonderful experience. My husband, daughter, and my good friend Suzanne and I went to see the changing leaves because this is that season when it's just magical to see the leaves turning from green to bright red and orange and gold, and then to kind of fall away on the wind as we transition from summer into fall. It's just beautiful. So we decided to drive upstate a little bit in order to be able to observe this. And we went to a reserve that has lots of trails, and it was just beautiful to walk. We walked along a trail in the woods, looking at nature, breathing fresh air. There were lots of people who had made this choice along with us. So when we passed people, we made sure that we had our masks on. When there were no people around, we were separated from each other. And what we did was to take our masks off to really breathe in that beautiful, crisp, fresh air that you experience in a forest. It was just magnificent. And I think we walked about 4 miles. It wasn't very long, but I walk in Central Park. There's a couple of hills, not too many. This is in a forest, kind of. And there are lots of rocks, and there were many inclines and then declines. And I want to tell you, when we got to one of the last declines, suddenly my knees started hurting. I mean, like crazy, like there were knives in my knees. It was crazy. We hadn't been walking fast. We were walking at a nice pace, but that downward walk I wasn't doing it properly, obviously. And because of not having done that kind of walking for a long time, in a really hilly area, not walking enough, not moving enough over these past months since March when we've been home, it hurt. It hurt my knees. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So then my husband told me, lean into your heels. And then everybody's coaching me. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Yeah, thanks for the help, but it was tough. It was really tough. It was really tough to be in that space and to not figure out what I was going to have to do comfortably. That it was not comfortable. That's really loud. And so, why do I mention that to you? Because it was lack of movement that put me in the space where now I'm moving and I'm in pain. It was lack of movement, consistent movement over this period of time that created a challenge that I'm still feeling today. Has that happened to you? Have any of you been in that position where, you've been still for so long that then when you get up and move, things aren't working as well as they should? Now, to be fair, this was a hike in the woods, which is different from walking in Central Park, the kind of walking on the concrete of New York City, which is something that I do sometimes. But whatever it is that you do or used to do that perhaps you're not doing as much, what happens when you start back? For me, all of the reminders were filling my head as I was doing this last stretch in this forest, in this reserve, because I was in pain. And going through my head were, okay, my gym only recently reopened, but I'm a little skittish about going there. But the park is a few blocks down the street. How often do I get up, stretch, but then sit? How often do I not take that walk in the park before I sit down and then tell myself I'm going to do it in the afternoon, but then I'm just worn out and don't do it? Ask yourself these questions. Whatever your rhythm is for caring for your physical body, are you doing it? Do you need to refresh it? What is your relationship to movement? Now, I've talked to a number of clients who are on both sides of the spectrum. So a few people I talked to who live all over the country, so it's not location specific, have been getting on their bikes, going for rides, have been taking hikes, have been, some people got that Peloton bike in their house and they're going for it, however many miles they feel that they need to do. There's a contingent like that who are taking action, who are moving their bodies, and it's really great. Then there are the others who are like, in my mind, I need to do this. I want to do this. I haven't done this. And, not necessarily taking action, thinking about it, but not doing it. Where do you fall? And those are extremes. So many of us are in the middle, kind of fits and starts of movement. My friend Suzanne was telling me about this amazing trainer who she met, Hector, who was a man who was in prison for many years. And while in prison, and I've learned this about a lot of people, that you have choices there too. So many people choose to be fit. He chose to be fit, and upon release has developed a wonderful business where not only does he stay fit, but he trains other people. And he's often working with people, teaching people who were once incarcerated how to be trainers. Because as you may know, a lot of people who've been in the system, it becomes very difficult for them to be employable. So he's figured out how to employ many, many, many people. And during COVID, he's doing this online. And she was telling me about him before I had my knee crisis. And then she said, you should probably take class with him. So I'm going to try it out. Move. What do you have to do to move your body to make it possible for you to be healthy and whole, especially during a time when we are so still? And the most that we're often doing is kind of leaning in and out on a chair, hopefully one that's comfortable, uh, over very long periods of time. Now, I know some of my friends have the standing desk. I've thought about getting the desk that you can sit and stand, because then you can have that. When my watch tells me stand up after an hour. Too bad I need my watch to tell me that, right? But again, if you are so blessed as to be working and your work now is facilitated by a screen, for me, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to be working. I bet you are too if you are having the experience of working using technology to support your ability to work. But the technology is not supporting our ability to tend to our bodies, to make sure that we move, to get our circulation going. It's essential, you guys. It really, really is. And I want to take this concept of move beyond just the physical movement, even though that could be enough. But we often talk spiritually now, and thinking about our whole life. Another thing that has become very clear to me in working with people all over the country in these past months since we've been quarantined with COVID is many people have physically moved. Many young adults have packed up their apartments wherever they were living, building their careers, and moved back home, because this screen can be anywhere and it can save money. Some people have moved back home because they lost their jobs. Some people, like one young man, I loved hearing this story. He lives in New York City, has a very good job, but it's all on screen right now. He packed up and moved to Colorado because he said, why not? Now, I always wanted to live in Colorado. I want to be out in the open in nature. I don't want to be stuck in my apartment with so many people around in New York City. So he packed up, and moved to Colorado. So on the weekends and the evenings and the mornings, when he's not working, he can go out literally and be in nature. Move. He moved, and his spirit is so full because he made a choice that who knows when he'll be able to make such a choice again. People have moved to the country. People have moved, outside of big urban centers where sadly COVID is still raging. Many people have made the choice to move into smaller areas. Now, of course, sadly, some of those areas have now had surges too. If people are not practicing social distancing, if they're not wearing their masks, etc., when they're around others. So we want people to be safe and to make smart choices. But this sense of movement, physically moving somewhere that may fill your spirit and your being better. And then what is that inner movement? What's the inner movement where you figure out, what do you value? What is most important to you? What do you care about? What do you care about? What if you were to strip away everything, how would you identify your values? This is an important thing for us to think about, because when you see what you value and then measure it up against the way that you're living your life, you may find that you want to move certain things out. What is serving you? What needs to go? Well, you can sweep away the things that are not serving you anymore. This is part of the power of paying attention to your life, to your world, to you, on what needs to go. What do you need to move out to make space for the life that you want to live? Have you thought about that? I think it's worth considering, because it's move on all these different levels. The physical moving, because the human body needs to move. And by the way, if you end up like I did with some hurting knees, I came home and took a bath in Epsom salts and did some stretching, and I will continue my walk in Central Park, which has only a few hills, but, I was at my stride, I was doing about 6 miles a day. Now I'm doing about 3. 3 is good. I need to do it every day. What about you? That physical movement that keeps your body healthy. What is that? The assessment of how you move through space and in space and live your life. Does that include moving your physical self somewhere else? Does that include moving things out of your physical space in order to feel your spirit better? What does it mean? Think about how you can best be in alignment with your goals, values, and dreams and move anything out that isn't serving you. We can do this. It requires focus, it requires intention, it requires commitment because that law of physics, a body in motion stays in motion, a body that is still ain't moving. We need to move. We need to move our physical beings. We need to engage our spirit, engage our understanding of who we are and what we value, and move forward with that. We can do it. You can do it. Let's do it. Let's move, y'all. You ready? All right. I want you to go to my Dreamleapers inspiration group that I put on Facebook and tell us, let's tell each other when we leave here, go to the Dreamleapers inspiration Facebook group, join if you haven't already, and write down what you are going to do today to get yourself moving. What will that be? Just one thing. What will you commit to doing today in the space of movement? Go to Dreamleapers Inspiration Group, write it down, and let's stay in movement together. You want to? I do. I'm going to go write mine now. Thanks for being with me as always. It's so great to be with you, to be inspired with you across the airwaves. And I just hope that you will make today a day of movement. So, but sign off, y'all. Have a great day and make it count. Namaste.